Welcome to Safety Talk. Personal safety expert Pete Canavan shares his insights and interviews experts who provide simple and effective tips, techniques, and technologies to keep you safe and secure both online and off. Here's Pete.
Hello, and welcome to Safety Talk. I'm your host and personal safety expert, Pete Canavan. As a self-employed information technology consultant since 1995, and as a martial artist for almost 25 years, I bring decades of both online and offline safety and security experience to my role as the host of this show. To learn more about me and how I can help your business, you can always visit my personal website at petecanavan.com. So thanks so much for our listeners for being here. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this podcast and visit our YouTube channel at safetytalkvideos.com. You can get the latest information about safety tools, tips, technologies, all the great guests and products that they have to offer to help us all stay safer in this increasingly dangerous world that we are living in. We appreciate you helping us spread the word about Safety Talk and share that in your social circles as well. We need to all work to make this world a safer place. So today's guest, I'm excited. He's here to discuss an increasingly important topic that we unfortunately are hearing about all the time with alarming frequency. He's a highly experienced cybersecurity professional who has made his and his partner's vision of creating a security hub to handle third-party risks of online services a reality. Idan Cohen is CEO and co-founder of a company called, make sure I get the name right here. Reflectiz, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And he's also a former cyber IDF officer, and he has over a decade of information security experience and penetration testing experience as well. Following his cybersecurity role in the IDF, he was the CTO of the biggest offensive security company in Israel, BugSec. And this was followed with a stint at a company called Cynet, which was a startup company. So I'm excited to bring him on today's show and today's episode of Safety Talk to learn more about his company, Reflectiz, and how it can increase your cybersecurity and online safety. So with that said, it's my pleasure to bring and welcome Idan Cohen to Safety Talk. Welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot, Pink. Very happy to be here.
Oh, we're happy to have you here. It's been a while since our last episode. This summer was a real busy one for me and my family. I hear it's you as well. You have a new baby, new daughter. So congratulations to you. Sure, that's messing up your schedule a little bit, right?
Yeah, I have a new role now, and it's a new experience to be a father for the first time. She's pretty cute, my little one, 3 months old. And I used to be awake at night. That's my expertise, to be awake at night. So me and her bonding that in that time.
Excellent. So that's awesome. It's the kids get so big so quick. It was a busy summer for me. We did lots of traveling. We have a new dog, not a new baby. It's
also important.
Worse. A white German Shepherd. Actually, I didn't even know white German Shepherds existed until we found it, because I like German Shepherds. My wife was always like, oh, they're scary looking, the black and the brown. I don't like what they look like. And then she found a white one and she's like, oh, she's so cute. I'm like, I don't care what color it is. Let's get it. But she's proven to be a handful. So 2021's been a whirlwind. We're all trying to get back to some semblance of normalcy here. It's not exactly easy, but as I mentioned in your introduction, your company provides a host of solutions. So why don't we start off by letting our audience know what drove you and Israel to found the company, and I've given a little bit about your experience, but if you could kind of just give us a little bit of information about yourself.
Okay. So as you said in the beginning, my entire career is from the offensive security point of view, information security all over the place. Started from the IDF as security researcher, then went and managed as CTO one of the biggest offensive security companies in Israel. I was the CTO, meaning all the cool stuff you can do as a hacker, from a simulations attack and building Trojan horses and hacking almost everywhere around the planet. It's all what we did.
Wow.
And that was fun. That actually was kind of the role that you are actually really enjoying doing that for payment. And then in 2016, I founded Reflectiz with my coworker back then, Israel, which was the head of application security. One of my best hackers that I had during the time in BugSec. Now, my role in BugSec was one of the main reasons that gave me the idea of why we need Reflectiz to be exist in the world. Because as part of what I did in Backsec, I help companies, I help security, I help retail companies, I help finance companies to be secured and to make sure they have the best perimeter and the best application security standards. But what then I found out, or at least I was learning with them, is that they are fully blind for what we are calling third parties applications or digital applications. So think about it. If you are a regular enterprise and you want to start a new application, you're hiring the best developers and they are starting to develop your code, and you actually care about security. So you do training for them, and you're doing what we are calling code review and penetration testing, and you want to make sure you have the best application around the world, also from security standards. You're calling people like me, and we're trying to hack your application, and you actually solve all the problems that we are finding out. But what changed in the last few years is that now, when you're building this application, you actually are going to load many third-party applications, framework, open source, tag. You can think about of outsource some of our application or some of our development need in order to move faster, to be more agile. Why you need to invent analytics if you have Google Analytics? Why you need to invent your own chatbot if you have so many other chatbot companies around the world? Instead of just creating everything yourself, you are just connecting your applications to those outsources.
Okay.
Now you can think that you have maybe one or two or three, but today on an average application, you can have 40 or 50 different third-party applications. And that's great, But who tested them? Did you ever test the security of those applications? Their developers, their trading procedures? They are part of you. So if they get hacked, you get hacked.
Right. That could be the weak link.
And it did. And that's exactly what we understand Reflectiz. So we work with our clients and we try to make them protected. But then we saw that actually connecting to the entire world of third-party applications without a single line of security on the third-party point.
Wow.
That's a problem. And that's what got us the idea to say, wait, we need to solve the problem, and we know how to solve the problem. We need to give them the tool to make sure the third party is not the weakest part in the security posture.
So if you are consulting with a client and you say, hey, you've got this great application, we've been trying to hack it, your security is very good, but you're interfacing with these other applications, and we found one of them has some serious vulnerabilities. Now, what would the next step be? Then is that company now going to say to that third party, hey, we've got a problem using your technology, you need to fix it? Or they then have to make the decision to not use that technology and try to find an alternate one that's more secure?
So it actually really depends of the company that is asking to fix the problem and the third party need. So if you are a big enterprise, you may be able to go to the vendor and say, fix it, or I'm leaving you because I'm paying you a lot of money.
Right.
If you're a small company, maybe it's just a risk you need to live with and to say, yes, I'm using third parties. That's part of the cost. I need to live with them because I need their analytics. I need their ads. I need their advertising. What can I do? That's part of the risk. That's part of the world. And sometimes you can decide, yes, I will choose alternative B and alternative C because they are much better apps, and Reflectiz are not saying they're doing problems or doing something that is insecure. So that's part of the process, and it really depends on the kind of the risk we are finding for them and the need of this application. If it's just a nice gimmick of one of the developers and you can just replace it on a different framework, or it's a pure functionality that you need to live with it.
Right. So, and I mean, everybody's building apps. And so I think there's a lot of pressure on companies to come out with applications that, that can interact more easily with their customers, their clients, their vendors, whoever. And so I think a lot of them, are overlooking that part of it. They think, hey, we developed an application, it's passed all the testing that we have, but then they haven't thought too much about the dependencies that they have on third parties, but you have. So where did you get this idea for starting this company?
So actually,
you recognized that need and said, hey, we could fill this void.
yes, and even more interestingly, one of my previous roles, I was actually consultant one of the third parties companies. One of my clients was a third party company that was installing their code on other companies. And then they asked me, how can we prove to our clients that we are secured? Because they wanted to sell for big enterprises around the world. And the enterprise that was a bit know about third party asked them, prove me that you are okay. And then we understand that there is a blind spot from both parts. The enterprise or the company can't really be secured from the third party. But if the third party is doing security and is saying, I did invest a lot of money in making sure my third party app is secured, how can I prove it? What they did until now, they have a questionnaire. Yeah. Are you secured? How much time you invest in security? What is the standard? Are you PCI? Are you ISO? And that's nice. I'm not saying it's good to have questionnaire when you're onboarding a new vendor.
Well, sure, but I mean, anybody could answer anything on a questionnaire.
Exactly. And it's very, and exactly. So everyone can answer, yes, of course. I'm not going to say I'm a bad in security. I will lose my client. Right. Yeah. So you send a questionnaire, and then once in a year, you send the questionnaire again to see if something changed. And I will sorry for it's bullshit. Right. So we understand that, and you say, no, you need to have some kind of online, ongoing monitoring that will monitor in the entire time the connection, the communication between you as the application and the third party. And when something changed, you have a new version of the third party, or maybe even the third party got hacked, then you need us, that what we think that we can do, to tell you, wait, something changed. It's doing something it's not supposed to do. Maybe something bad because it got hacked, or even something that you thought it's okay, but you understand it's now creating you a privacy problems or breaking something you're not supposed to break on your side. That's the part of the problem when you're connected together.
So I was looking at your website, and for those, I'm gonna pull it up in a little bit here, so people that are watching can see. It shows that. Let me see if I can pop this up here, and we should be able to see your website here. So you have various solutions. So it says start protecting your online shoppers, for example, like an e-commerce, solution, somebody's trying to protect themselves with no installation or setup. So somebody that's interested in this, maybe they search you out or they listen to this interview and they say, hey, this sounds really interesting. I need to make sure that my app is secured. I don't want people to, my site to be hacked, my customers' data to be stolen, credit cards, info, all of that. So how does it protect people without having to install and set up? Are you like something that sits in between?
So our idea is that instead of installing something on your site, changing your site, and then you have a lot of internal issues, performance issues, a lot of onboarding, hard onboarding, we did something, I think, unique and a bit different. We decided to simulate a regular user like yourself, that visiting the website, not just visiting the website, with a browser, with a mouse, with a keyboard, with all the activities you will do. It will scroll the page down, it will click buttons if needed, it will look and see actually the third parties on Accent. It will actually see what the different JavaScript, iframe, code, pixels are actually doing as I am the user. And when I, as the user, will see what is actually going on, I will be able to detect if now we have some kind of an attack, because the attack will be on me. Or if someone collecting data from me without my permission, which can cause a privacy problem. Okay. So the idea is that instead of interfering with the site, and in security, it's a problem. You don't want, the system most of the time don't want now to change the entire website for every solution. It's hard, it's costly, the website is very important. Instead of that, we're just taking the site, go inside as a user, normal user, like you just type reflectiz.com and investigate the site completely, visiting all the pages, doing all the actions required in order to invoke the actions the site can do on me, and then to tell my client if there's something it's not supposed to be. One of the vendors or one of the open sources, one of the repositories that's loaded on me is doing something that is maybe a problem.
Right. So you have a lot of customers here that are utilizing your services, it looks like. And everybody's doing stuff online, especially even more so with the COVID-19 pandemic that disrupted everything over the last year and a half. How did that affect your business? Did you see an increase in inquiries because more and more people are doing stuff online? So more companies realized, hey, we need to really make sure, we've seen, I don't know, a 40% increase in traffic to our website. We've got all these more people coming there. We better make sure that not only are the good, customers that we want to come to the site having a good experience, but that if anybody tries to hack into our site, that it's secure and we're more protected. Because obviously the more exposure you have a larger footprint. The bigger the company, the more maybe enticing it becomes to a hacker, right?
Exactly. So it's not a new thing that we all go digital. That's something that we're talking about, I think, 10 years.
Sure.
But the COVID made it accelerated, makes it so fast that companies change, maybe not overnight, but in just a short period of time, from doing a lot of what we are thinking about retail and face-to-face and physical transactions to go online. And that caused, for the urgency, for the priority of them to understand that now they have a problem, we need to fix it today, not in 6 months, not in 12 months, today, because they have a lot of transactions and so many new users. And you know that now to be breached can reflect on their P&L heavily. That's Meta should be much more prioritized now. So if 3 years ago, when I went to a client and it said, yes, I have a website, but I still have a lot of income from my retail and the site is new and it's okay. Now we are top one because everyone moving to digital. And if they didn't move to digital, they are working on it now and they need to make sure that it's very, very secured when they finish.
So when you have a customer that says, hey, we have to make sure that we are compliant, for, say like, medical or financial applications, obviously they have, greater scrutiny from regulators and things like that. What would some of those additional challenges be to those companies that are using these third-party applications? Because I can see where, obviously you're not running to the post office and dropping off a check, which a lot of people don't do anymore. Anyway, we pay everything online. But you have this, like you said, I mean, we've seen everything accelerate. It's increased. We may have had a slow and steady or, a fairly, decent growth curve going. But with the pandemic, everything seemed to, like you said, it accelerated. So instead of being like this, now things are growing faster. And so that has to be something where companies just become almost overwhelmed by trying to manage this and say, oh my, what are we going to do? How do we manage this? How can we ensure that everybody has a good experience and we can stay protected? Because all it takes is one cyber attack that could put a company out of business. And, I tell my clients all the time, look, you may not think you're a big enough company to have a cybersecurity program, but I'm here to tell you, you're never going to recover if you are the victim of a cyber attack. So, you invest, a little bit of money and that could protect you and that could set you up for a plan to recover, because it's really not if it happens, it's when it happens. I mean, yes, that's a cliche, but, companies are getting hacked all the time and a lot of them, it's scary enough. And you could probably, back me up on this. A lot of companies don't even know it, right?
Yeah, that entire idea. They know about it probably, but it's too late. After 2-3 months, I think, of being hacked online. And when you're being hacked, you're losing money every day you're being hacked. So what we call today time to response, time to detect, time to response, it's crucial in order to reduce the cost of an attack. If you discover the attack on time, and that's another topic. If you're familiar with the famous SolarWinds attack, it was 3 months, 4 months, even before the first ones even started to understand there is something going wrong there.
And yeah, and the damage then is already done.
Yeah, indeed, and the damage is done, and it's very hard to roll back from it easily.
So how does the compliance piece of it really add additional challenges, I guess? Because there are companies that are thinking, hey, we're a big financial services firm, we're a medical facility, we have all these records. how challenging is that for you? Because you've got to, I guess, to a certain extent, become familiar with a lot of that, right?
Yeah, so the compliance, I think, is a very important accelerator also of the security need, because many companies maybe don't want to invest in security, or even if they want to invest in security, they don't want to invest as much as required. And the compliance is actually, let's say, forcing them to invest. But what also happened is almost in all the regulations, also from the security classic compliance and even from the new privacy regulations, they all require you to do something basic, which is discovery or inventory. First of all, you need to know your assets. Right. The asset can be a website, your asset can be your third party, or an asset can be your data itself. But every time the basic in security or to start to protect, you need to know what you're protecting on. Right. And that's a challenge that is in our world, it's actually ridiculous. Most of the security companies we are meeting are not even aware of the third parties they are using.
That's a scary thought.
But they don't even know about it, because who bring the third parties? The marketing team to do campaigns and analytics, the digital team to create the site, the developers to have new framework, to have a better JavaScript. It's not going for the security. So when I'm meeting a client for the first time and I'm displaying the entire inventory of third parties application, his first reaction is, what the hell are they and who let them in my site? It's not a factor of, yes, I know about it, let me know how to secure it. The discovery ability here of the third party and afterward the fourth party, the fifth party is critical. And that's the basic and every compliance. If you think about most of the finance compliance today, they require you to know the third parties. They require you to mark the important third parties and to create security program based on the importance of the criticality of the third party. So that's something that was very obvious on the change to this new digital area. How do you discover those third party? How do you create the inventory of application? You have it on the IT and the regular IT land. That's you have. For years, we made a list of my computers and host and end user and a lot of tools that try to take your Active Directory and decides what is the user that you have. But on that world, it's fairly new. And even the questions, the simple questions, who are your third parties? It's something that none of my prospects or people that start to work with know when we start to work together. They know if maybe someone knows 30%, 50%, if they are okay, they are strong, but that's it.
So when because that's a huge, and you bring up something that I talk about all the time too, is you've got to know what assets you have in order to know not only what to protect, but which ones are critical. Like you might have some assets that, okay, if they're affected from a cyber attack, it's not going to take your entire business down. If you're a manufacturing facility, for example, if it affects, your time clock, well, okay, your machines may still be running and you can still be producing product. But if it's something that, your order taking system that's online goes down, now you have no more orders coming in. Now you have no more business coming in. Eventually that pipeline will dry up. You got to deal with it. So that's a huge issue when you're trying to figure out what all the assets are and in designing a program for recovery to look at that. That's a hugely important step. So for a company, so when you sit down with whatever the people in the company are, whoever they are, that's got to be a big challenge, because you've got to basically bring in everybody from all the different departments and say, hey, like, who are you kind of the person that comes in and finally compiles a complete list for them?
So what at least I'm trying to do is to help them with prioritization of the problems. Mm-hmm. So unlike that's another solution, but very common problem in cybersecurity, that you're just spamming your clients with thousands of alerts and then tell them enjoy with the clients with the alerts. We are trying to point them to the 3, 4, 5 applications that are doing something you need. I think at least you need to resolve them now. So instead of now to start to create a team of not thousands, but a big team of trying to understand what is the inventory. No, this is the list. We can do a project later to maybe remove some of the applications, but those are the 5 main applications that may be doing something you want to resolve today.
Right.
Then you know the application, you know the details, you know what it is doing, you know the risk. You're not saying that's the application, you know the risk, and then you can start and fix the most important stuff and go from there. In theory, it will be best if you can fix all the applications and understand, work with all the teams. But especially in enterprises, it's not so easy to create the team with the marketing and the digital and security all working together, hand, holding hands, and agree together about all the applications needed to be run, when and how. In theory, it's nice, but I think you know even better than me that it's not happening. It's very hard to achieve this utopia. But at least if I can detect the not a lot, 2, 3, 4 main problems with these applications, and I explain the risk today that they're creating, then I'm seeing the marketing is much willing to listen, the digital, because you give them a threat and maybe even a solution how to resolve a specific problem and not just let's fix all the problems in the world.
Yeah, and that's, if you can, and every company has a different risk appetite, right? So some companies are willing to accept more risk because maybe they're not as critical in their realm, or they just don't have the budget to put a huge investment into the security of it. So they realize that and they say, well, you know what? We're going to take some additional procedures to make sure that we're backing up our data more frequently, maybe that we have more data redundancy, and try to close the things that we can and tighten them up. But at the end of the day, we're doing the best we can. And they know that. And as long as they know that, well, okay. But then there's other companies that can't. They have to say, yeah, okay, what are these top risks? We got to deal with them, like you're saying, like right now, because if we eliminate these top 3 or 4 risks, it's going to make us infinitely more secure because we've closed the biggest, security holes in our organization to deal with. So that's a big step forward for them because, every little bit helps, and the more you do, the better it's going to be. But like you said, I mean, we both know there's no such thing as 100% secure. It just doesn't exist. Even an air gap system, you could have somebody break into the room and steal the equipment or download stuff to a flash drive or something. So there's no such thing as 100% security. But if we can get close to that, really close to that, well, we're doing, as best as we can, right?
Yeah. Actually, what you just said is something that guide myself and Israel, my co-founder, a lot. When we started to create the IP, we always had an internal fight how much secure we want to be, how the solution should be able to detect all the type of attacks everywhere, all the time, or want to have something that maybe is not 100% secure, but is actionable, easy to use, easy to understand, and not getting a lot of internal problems. Because in theory, you can tell me, Idan, you need to install your code on the server itself. That's where you can have your own proxy and see all the traffic, and then you can detect every rare case that will happen. But that will cost a lot for the client, from resources, from performance. And we try to find the balance between to live with security and not change the entire company in order to be secured. So I truly believe what you're saying, that you can't get 100%, but you can create a decent solution that will solve most of the problems, and then you can reduce the risk in order to be able to live with them and to manage them in a risk management program as you should.
Now, when the solution is presented to the client, do you develop that and then sort of hand it off to them, or do you help them manage that on an ongoing basis?
So when we start to work with a new client, we are actually scanning his assets, of course, and then we're actually working with him to try to reduce the risk. So we are guiding them with the most severe alerts, as I told you before, to make sure they are resolving them, which is testing them how they can easily mitigate some of the risk. Mm-hmm. Now, it really depends on the client. Some clients tell us, we have a big team, don't bother us, get me all to Splunk. I have my team of analysts, they will go with the records, just don't bother me. Some companies, maybe a bit smaller, are using a lot of our expertise. What is this alert? What do you think? What we should do? Mm-hmm. Is this risk, is manageable risk, or you're suggesting me to fix it now? It is something that we have a lot of expertise, since that's actually what we are doing on our day-to-day living. But we try to help as much as we can to our clients. The idea is not to give them one scan and disappear. Right. I think the real value It's the ongoing process of improving your website. It's not get the report, fix the one alert, because tomorrow a new version of the third party can be released.
Right.
And
With
what you
its
will do
own
then,
set
you
of
say,
risks.
yeah, so it's an ongoing risk. You need to have the process, the idea, how it's working, and hopefully the help of us to give you the intent that something changed, maybe you want to address it now.
So over the course of time, you must run into the same third-party applications over and over, especially the larger ones that are used by a lot of different companies. Do you guys maintain, I guess, for lack of a better word, like a database of these applications with known vulnerabilities so that when you bring in a new client, you can say, oh, they're using these applications and we've dealt with them before and we know these are the problems with them. So it makes it easier for you to go in and say, hey, we know that these are the third-party applications that you're using that have issues. These are the known issues. These are how we need to go fix them.
Yeah, it's one of the benefits that we have because we are scanning many websites around the world. We have our own inventory of global third parties applications. And it's not only from vulnerability point of view, it's also from popularity point of view. Think about it if you're a big enterprise and you're using Google Analytics. Google Analytics is maybe the most common third party in the world. It's been running on 8 out of 10 any website around the world. With all due respect, you won't sense Google Analytics, everyone using them, and if they will breach, the entire world will breach. So you don't really need to invest effort in fixing your Google Analytics or doing hard security testing on them. That's a common. But if you have another third party that the popularity is even less than 1%, and no other bank in your region is using it, let's say if you're a bank, maybe that's something you need to think about. Maybe in this risk management, you need to think, wait, I'm using maybe a small company, so maybe their security standards are less. And if it's not, why no one else is using them? Why it's only less than 1% popularity? So the idea is from the behavior that we are investigating, the popularity, you understand what is the level of awareness for this application. And you can then make a decision. If you saw applications that running only on your website, it's probably either your code or an attack on your code because it's not very common. So by this data, we're able to point out to the exact problems, or at least to be much more smarter when we issuing an alert about a very common stuff, or alert about very rare stuff that maybe is part of a direct campaign on you.
So you mentioned something there. So you send out an alert. So if you've got, your clients and, whatever, say, 25% of them are using this one third-party application, that third-party application comes out with an update. You take a look at that updated version and you discover there's a problem with it. Do you then send an alert out to your clients and say, hey, hold off on upgrading to this version, or if you've upgraded to this version, there are some additional vulnerabilities that you need to deal with now, and this is what we found, and here are the steps to mitigate that problem?
Yes, and the severity of the alert will be based on the different factors. If it's a very common application or not common application, what is the change? If it's just a new version, but nothing changed, so it's not collecting any new data, it's not doing any activity that's maybe be considered malicious, so it's just a spam alert. But if this new version is now opening a GPS record of your users, or now starting to collect credit card numbers, then I want to raise a higher flag and say, wait, did you allow this friendly vendor to collect all the CVVs of your users? Yeah. So by these parameters, the activity, the data, and actually the location where they're coming, we're able to understand if we have a normal version, just an upgrade version, or a new problem. And the severity of the alert will be based on those three questions. We're calling it the who, the what, and the where. Who did it, what he did, where he did it.
Right. So are older solutions that exist right now to protect companies not as effective, or are they becoming ineffective in fighting some of these new threats? Because we know that this evolves. I mean, on a daily, hourly basis, really, things are constantly changing. So is that something where you bring to the table, look, we're a new company, we offer new solutions, we've been doing this for years. we're familiar with the types of attacks that have not only been out there, but are new ones that we're seeing in the wild every single day. So I would say, why, or are the older solutions that are out there ineffective in fighting the new threats that are coming out, simply because they're older and they're not as aware? Maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe you can shed some light on that for our listeners here.
I think that the main difference is that until the last 3 years, most of the solution was focused on protecting your own code or your own application by mistakes.
Okay.
You had training on your own developers. You had code review on your own code. You had WAF and IPS protecting the communication between the users. WAF is the application firewall. It's a common security solution for a website. So you had the WAF protecting the communication between the user and your website, your application, your code, your API. But then we got the third parties. And the third parties is not your code. It's not your developers. And actually, they're not talking directly with you. They're talking with your users. So when you go to your best retail website and you want to buy a product, you're probably talking directly with the third parties, not going to the website. You're talking with Facebook, you're talking with Google, you're talking with analytics tool, you're talking with the payment processor. You're not going through the website at all. So the best WAF there and the best developers are a bit irrelevant here, because you can be breached or can have your data leaked from the third party itself. And that, I think, if I will make it one-liner, that's the main sense. The idea is that in order to be protected, it's not about protected only you. In this new way of development, when you connected all those applications, they are part of you. You need to protect them. As you said in the beginning, that's the weakest link. If they be breached, you are breached, and it's irrelevant if you have the best security team in the world.
No, that makes perfect sense, because you've got because I think a lot of companies do exactly what you just said. They look at their own code, their own applications, their own development. They make sure that that's secure and good. And then they don't think about, I mean, maybe they think about it, but they're relying on the other companies' applications that they are integrating with and trusting them that they're going to be secure. And that could be a fatal mistake if there's some sort of vulnerability that is exploited. And now, it's kind of like it comes in the back door, right? We're fine, but this piece that we're working with isn't so fine. And that's where we have to worry about it. And that's where you guys come in. So, I mean, I think that's a great, niche. And I think we need to really make more companies aware of that, because I know I deal with a lot of clients, and we do have a lot of integration, like, with PayPal instant payments, for example, or whether it's with analytics, through different websites. And you sort of trust, maybe blindly and maybe wrongly, that some of those add-ons are secure. Now, the bigger companies, like you're saying, like Google and stuff, you can't really worry about them, because we didn't pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Google, I think I found a vulnerability." They'd be like, "Yeah, we got it. Don't worry about it," right? Yeah. But smaller ones, and they're out there all the time, where you have a lot of companies which are very, they're cutting edge. They're coming up with new solutions. They're coming up with things that are maybe wanted. When somebody learns about a new technology, they think, "Wow, this is great. I could add this functionality to my website." Maybe it's some new type of interactive chat tool or something, or whatever it happens to be. And they go and they just install it. And they're like, "Great, now we have this new feature. We can use this." But yet they haven't done their due diligence. They haven't done their homework. They haven't asked someone like yourself, "Hey, we want to integrate with this other tool. What are your thoughts on it? Is there anything we need to look for? Should we be concerned with that?" And I think having someone like, you and your company in sort of your corner to be able to bounce, those sort of questions off and to help with, that's a really valuable thing that I see becoming even more needed in the future. there's risks, there's challenges, but we don't all know what those risks are. And that's bad because then you have a blind spot. So if I'm a company that says, okay, we have this application, we want to integrate it with, X, Y, and Z companies, and they want to get started, what do you tell that company? Say, so I come to you and I say, hey, what do I do to get started? What would our next steps be? Because I think that's important for people listening that say, we've got these new applications. We're rolling out a new version of our website maybe next month. And before we do that, maybe we should have a fresh set of eyeballs, take a look at it. So how would that person get started with you?
Actually, in a very simple way, I will ask him to the website. If it's before production, I will ask him for his pre-production website, like a beta website, a website that's not online. I will run the scan. The scan automatically will discover all the third parties, maybe the one he was looking for, and maybe 3 more others. And after 10-15 minutes, he will already have his own report, understanding what they're actually doing. And then I will tell them what they are doing. Is it okay by you? And he will say, maybe it's okay. And we will click approve, meaning we'll approve this configurable with this baseline, I'm calling it. And then I will tell him, let's continue monitoring him and make sure this baseline, which we just approved, is not changing. So if it's okay by you, they are collecting first name and last name, that's perfect by me and perfect by you. And that's a risk and that's the need of the third party. It's perfect. But if tomorrow something changed and they're collecting credit card numbers because they got breached, then you still want to know about it. If you allow them first name and last name, you didn't allow them credit card number. This is at least not imperfect. So that's the idea. So we start with scanning. We have the baseline. We know what we have in day one. And now I will advise them to continue scanning them to make sure what we just approved is what is going on 3 months from now, 6 months from now, tomorrow, 2 years.
So they would say, so would they hire you for, say, on like a monthly basis, and then you would run scans, or they roll out new software and then you would run that, and then that becomes the new baseline?
So the idea is to do ongoing scans, or I'm calling ongoing monitoring, because not a scan, we are monitoring the site.
Okay.
The interval of the monitoring is based off the risk from their point of view. Testing on a daily base, on hourly base, on a weekly base. But it can't wait for their new version. Because again, we're talking about third parties applications. So the question is when the third party has a new version, and that's something they're not knowing. So the idea is to test as much as we can in order to reduce the time to detection of a problem. So if I will scan you once a week, in theory, it can take for me 7 days to detect that a vendor or third-party code or repository is now doing something it's not supposed to do. 7 days for a marketing website, it's not a big issue. 7 days for a retail site that have millions of dollars of transactions on an hourly basis can be a huge fine and a huge problem.
Okay. So if like a big e-commerce website, you'd probably recommend like they have like hourly scans, but somebody that's just using
real time. Exactly.
Yeah. And somebody that's just using it to bring in leads. Yeah. Once a week is fine. Because
once a week, just to mark it's okay. But once a week, not a month, just to know. And that's how we are working. It's a modular approach. Take your important asset and scan them hard. And other assets once a week, once a month, just to make sure you're not doing something it's a big mistake. But even if you do 1 week delay, won't change the thing. It's just a marketing website. It's not something that will break your business.
Very interesting. So I'm sure people are fascinated by what you're saying and how this can really help improve the security of all types of businesses. And it's great because you kind of have a customized approach based on the type of business, the type of application, the type of website, which is perfect because some things make sense for one type of business, they won't make sense for another type of business. Now, there's all kinds of problems that are created by these. And so what are those solutions? So you find the problems, right? Somebody rolls out, you're scanning an e-commerce website every hour. All of a sudden, tomorrow at 2:00, something pops up and say, hey, there was a change here. Now, what is the next step if it detects a vulnerability?
So it really depends on the vulnerability. So if you just discover a malicious code that's running on your site, there are not a lot of stuff to think. You need to remove the code at once and start to do the damage control to understand what happened.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a new behavior, meaning you have a third party that have a new version and the version is doing something new, now the question is what is something new? You probably will run to reach the vendor or at least to the owner on your enterprise, on your company that is inside of the application and ask him, do you know they're now doing tracking on your camera on microphone of the users? Do you know they're collecting GPS or now have a problem with privacy? Maybe he will say, yes, that's the reason we bought them. That's the reason you're using them. And then you can just approve and go to sleep.
Right.
But if it's a new version, you maybe want to do inquiry, or maybe you will decide to remove them just for a few weeks or days to verify the activity, or maybe even to change their location and to say, okay, I don't mind them to collect those data on just my marketing people that are going to my marketing website, but my people that are joining to the authentication banking site, my actual consumers and clients, I'm not allowing them to reach the GPS or the account details data. So the idea is that either you can change the data they are exposed and then limited exposure, or talk with the vendor to understand if it's okay or not okay and maybe remove, or remove them if it's a big problem. And sometimes, by the way, it's just to update the privacy policy. You know, we are in a very highly privacy world today. Sure. And even if all okay, and you have a new version that is doing something it's supposed to do, but it's collecting PII data, you maybe at least need to update the privacy policy and maybe your cookie consent to make sure what you are saying to your consumers, your clients, is what you're actually collecting for them. So we can be a variety of options, and that's based off the problem that's found. I'm not saying you're going to have on a daily basis the next zero-day attack that will break your site. I'm not saying it's not on a daily basis. Let's be honest. I want to give you the value on an ongoing basis for the small problems that it will be secured and reduce the attack surface. And I will find the 0 day that will happen once a year, once a 2 year when all goes hell and you need us to be protected. We'll help you with both of the cases.
Yeah, that's so good to be able to give somebody that peace of mind, knowing that somebody's kind of got your back. So we're cranking right through here. I want to pull up your site again and just kind of let people know here. So we've got you have 3 different solutions that are listed on the site. There's an e-commerce protection, a financial website mitigation, and then enterprise enablement. We kind of talked about the e-commerce side of things and what you can do to protect shoppers and their data and know what's going on there. The financial website mitigation. What can you tell us a little bit about that?
So unlike retail that are mostly focused on what we are calling web scheming, maze card, like intervening with the credit card numbers and steal user data, financial institutions and a lot of other compliance issue, regulation issue. They have a lot of other type of data. And for that, they need the visibility. They need to have connection with the third parties to the compliance. And we talked about it, about the need to discovery and need to do prioritization. And that's what we're trying to give them, not only to detect the malicious script that will happen, and that's, as I told you before, we will do, but to give them the ability to do inventory, to understand this application, to understand to prioritize what are most important stuff we need to do now, what are the problems that they have. And think about it, most of the time, those companies add a lot of more resources around the world. There may be more assets. They maybe have more service or domains, and then they need one tool that give them the visibility and discovery ability in order to maintain the security posture and the different compliance requirements they have today.
Yeah, because like it says here, you're asking people questions that I bet a lot of companies can't say yes to, such as detecting, changes that are made to the website from third-party apps like we've been talking about, monitoring, different things that are being used on the company's digital assets, and then, as you were mentioning a minute ago, what information and PII data, personally, identifiable information that the third party is collecting. And if the company knows about it, the president, CEO, whatever knows, like you said, okay, great. You're aware of it. You know about it. not an issue. Great. Keep, go on our merry way. But it does a lot of stuff here. Cause like I said, I went through the website the other day and, client side security and web skimming, digital inventory and asset management, compliance, security of your domain, digital tag security. So it's a lot of different things that your company does, which is fantastic. And like I said, is much needed today. And then the enterprise enablement. Obviously, everybody's got all these third-party apps that integrate, but it says here that you guys protect digital assets against risk from those third-party apps on the sites, and you have full visibility and efficient control without adding a single line of code. So is that where you guys you're sitting there and you're monitoring everything as it happens, as it says, handling risks at large scale?
Yeah, it's
more of like the regulation and compliance side of it.
Yeah, but on a high level, and I will explain. So we saw that some companies around the world, one of the challenges is not only the third-party application, is the amount of their own digital assets, the amount of sites they have. So it's not only to manage the risk on my site and to make sure my Reflectiz is secured, it's first to understand which are the assets that I have. And we have clients today that have thousands of websites. And even if you have the best solution in the world to make sure your single website is secured, you need a strong tool from my point of view that will allow you to manage a global corporation that have branches all around the world and have websites all around the world in just one dashboard. In the end, if I will issue you thousands of alerts on every given website, it will just be overwhelmed. You won't be able to do anything. And what you expect you to do, to go over 3,000 sites every day and checkbox thousands of alerts, it's not relevant. So what they're saying in the enterprise enablement is that we are able to support today companies with thousands of sites, thousands and tens of thousands of sites, with just one dashboard that is, with just few clicks, can connect you for the specific problems in every one of your specific sites based on the different challenges, different risks, different categories that you have, different problems, and to be easily connected with your other departments, your marketing department, digital departments, in some kind of a workflow, so you can talk with them directly all within the dashboard. Because it's not just to detect the problem, it's to make it actionable within a multi-site organization.
Yeah, for those watching this on YouTube, I have that dashboard sort of snapshot pulled up here on the screen as we're talking, and you can see where it's got like all the domains on the one side and your active alerts, and then as you were just mentioning, the different issues you have through different categories, whether it's related to malicious things or inventory or whatnot, or domain problems. So that's fantastic because, yeah, if you're a big company and you're somebody who's trying to deal with the security of all of these different digital assets, it's easy to get overwhelmed because it's like, how do I track all of this? Okay, I got to track this one over here and this one over here. And, if you've got hundreds of sites, it basically becomes impossible to stay on top of it all. And you pull it all together in this dashboard, the enterprise toolbox, as you call it here. And with this unified dashboard, it's amazing how it looks, because you have, the workflow status and, what's happening here on it. So I can see a tremendous amount of value here for companies, and really encourage you to take a look at this solution because, in your company here, Reflectiz is really, I think, onto something with regard to helping businesses stay more secure. Attacks like the SolarWinds attack, shed a lot of light on it. We had the pipeline hack occur, this past year. We've had so many of these cyber attacks that are occurring, and it may not just be an attack. And I think the thing to take away from our interview today for people is that a lot of companies are concerned about their companies being hacked, actively, but not really thinking about the vulnerabilities that exist that they have no control over, that they may need to become aware of so that they can be more proactive. And I think I'm kind of bringing that all together for you there. In a way that is more readily understood and more, brings that awareness to people. So, anything anybody can do to make their business more secure is obviously a good thing. So I might get into more details. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I'm assuming you guys charge either by the type of solution or the amount of data or the frequency of monitoring, that sort of thing. So you have different sort of solutions for different companies?
Yes, which the main question is the interval of the scanning and the amount of assets. If you have one asset to protect, 10 assets to protect, and some other questions about the enterprise requirements. But in the end, how many assets you have and how much time you want us, what is the interval you want us to scan them? A weekly, daily, one in real time, and 5 in weekly, and then we create a bundle for you.
Gotcha. And so what do you charge, like monthly or yearly or?
Most of the time is yearly. In security, it's a bit more common to do yearly.
Right.
In the first month, we're more working with the clients to making sure they are secure. We're creating the baseline. We're reducing the attack surface with unneeded applications. And then later of the year, it's mostly of the monitoring and the ongoing protection to make sure nothing break our baseline.
That's awesome. So, we're coming to the end of the show. It always goes quick, right? Fly through an hour here.
Yeah.
Do you have any last thoughts for our audience before we wrap here?
Yeah, so I have a short story to say that I don't know if the audience know, but Ticketmaster, the brands in UK, got breached on 2018.
Oh.
And they got breached by a third-party application. So they had the malicious code running on their website, and I think around 50,000 credit card numbers got leaked, and they got fined because of GDPR, and they created other problems. But the interesting story is not that they were breached, it's that they was actually not breached. One of the third parties got breached, his servers, his domain, his code. And Ticketmaster loaded the malicious code without any security tool and then ran the malicious code. And when they got the fine from the GDPR, from the European court, they claim that they're not their fault. They're not the victim. They're the victim. They're not the attacker. The third party got breached. It's a different company, a chatbot company. And the court tell them, if you decided, and I'm speaking in my language, but there is a better way to say it, I guess. When you decided to add a third party to your site, you are accountable to his actions. You can't say, it's not me, it's them. If you decided to implement a code in sensitive phase, like a payment process, you need to have the decent security procedures and tools to make sure they are doing what it's supposed to do. You can't say, it's not me, it's them. So they learn it on the hard way, and we are trying to make other companies not to learn it in this hard way.
So ignorance is not a defense.
But in this case.
Very interesting. So great. Thank you for sharing with us. If our listeners are interested in learning more about you or your company, you can go to the website, reflectiz.com. That's reflectiz.com. You can also find your company on social media, on LinkedIn. Just search for the company name. And we will post those links on the interview when that goes up. So really appreciate you being here, Idan, and again from Israel, joining us here. We've been getting a lot of guests on from all over the place, and it's fun, it's interesting, and it's great to get that additional perspective and information. So thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Safety Talk. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Get the latest safety and security information and past episodes at safetytalkpodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. So until next time, everybody, please stay safe.